Absolutely. Loved making those predictions. I like calling us out for being specific. We like to be able to be measurable on our predictions. We won't get them all right, but I think it's better than being general.
Yeah.
On this one, we really saw two things at work. So on the one hand, we were optimistic on the outlook for crypto. And if you're optimistic on the outlook for crypto, you think the market for companies building in this space is growing and substantial and there to be. The other factor that went into that prediction is that the IPO market was severely repressed by US regulators for the 4 years prior to this election, right? Circle, as an example, which for what it's worth has been the most successful IPO in the US in, I think, 10 years, right? It was 25x oversubscribed. The price has gone up eightfold. It's been huge.
Mm-hmm.
It tried to go public for 3 or 4 years, but the SEC wouldn't let it out. And so we saw all of these firms that were substantial in size, whether it's eToro or Circle or Kraken or Chainalysis or some of the others that are in the pipeline, that were sort of just waiting at the door. So once that regulatory environment changed, we thought they would run out. Now, I do think it's primed for this moment we're in, because there are a lot of professional investors, institutional investors, financial advisors that move at the speed of light and settle instantaneously around the world. And people say, oh, that's cool. So I do think it's really helped with the vibe shift. I think it's made crypto real.
Yeah.
And it's also brought in Wall Street, which is important because it solidifies the regulatory environment for crypto, right? It's no longer crypto versus Wall Street. It's crypto and Wall Street. And that means that Washington is now pro-crypto on a long-term basis. And that's been the other major vibe shift that I think it's brought on.
Yeah, and the pro crypto, not just in a political sense, but the fact that laws have been put in place that are going to be like the laws survive the administration, become the law of the land, and people start building to the law. And also to your point about some of those mainstream Wall Street companies, I don't know how excited they are about this, but they have accepted it as their reality, and so they need to build to it or risk being disintermediated or marginalized in some form.
It's exactly right. This is like the moment when Walmart realized it needed to build a website to compete with Amazon, right? Yeah. Now you have Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Goldman Sachs, everyone realizing that they need to be ready for the marketing scheme, as he always does. Tom's a good friend of mine, and talked about Ethereum as the stablecoin chain. The other thing that's going on beneath the surface, though, which maybe doesn't get talked about enough, is if you think about why Bitcoin has done so well over the last 18 months, it's been a really simple story where ETFs and corporations have bought something like 5x the new supply.
Yeah.
So there's been more demand than supply. Well, actually, since the start of May, ETFs and corporations have bought 32x the supply of Ethereum, because we've had this huge growth in Ethereum ETP flows, right? They did, I think, $5 billion over the last 8 weeks. And we've had this huge growth of corporations buying Ethereum. So the same sort of supply-demand story that drove Bitcoin for the last 18 months, and Ethereum just kind of sat there and went down, is now happening in Ethereum. So there's a vibe dynamic and there's a supply-demand dynamic. And you have to ask yourself, will these vibes continue? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Stablecoins and tokenization are going up and to the right from interest levels. And then will the supply-demand dynamics continue? I think absolutely. Ethereum inflows don't look to me like they're going to reverse. And these ETH treasury companies are trading at something like 2x or Schiller used to put out about the stock market, but he would look at price to earnings across like a 10-year period. I think in crypto, you have to do something similar to that. Or you can take the approach that's equally appealing to me, which is we're still in the very early phases of this, right? And so what matters is market share. To Alex's point, a lot of activity is taking place on layer twos on ETH. It's very dispersed. But from my view, the ETH bet is that a huge chunk of the world's money and assets will move over ETH. That's the bet you're making. And if that's right, it's not a $400 billion asset.
Yeah.
Right. It's a $4 trillion asset or something above that. And that's like enough valuation work. Really, I can do the DCA stuff. I can do, but in the end, that's the bet I'm making when I buy ETH, is that this will be the rails for most of the world's money and assets, the same way the internet is the rails for the world's communication. And boy, will that be valuable. So I sort of think you can take either approach when you think about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Matt, you mentioned Tom Lee and these Ethereum treasury companies and the Bitcoin ones as well have gathered just a crazy amount of assets. But
buying gold coins and bars also grew 3 or 4x. And the reason was that the ETFs helped make gold a mainstream institutional asset. So it dramatically broadened the market, and people found all these different ways to add in. So I think what Bitcoin ETFs have done is they've helped push Bitcoin into the mainstream of institutional adoption, dramatically widen the pie. And yes, of course, some people will find these other ways to gain exposure. They want the levered style exposure that MicroStrategy provides. But we're not sad about that at Bitwise. In the same way, I compete with BlackRock, and I wish I had their assets and their Bitcoin ETF. But BlackRock being in the market has grown the market for Bitwise as well. So at this point, it's just about growing the pie. And I think that's what's happening with these Bitcoin and ETH treasuries. All of that is one way we differentiate, by really aligning ourselves with the values that this part of the market cares about. Not everyone cares about that. Some people care more about BlackRock's brand. That's fine, but that's one of the things we do. The other ways we try to differentiate, we have a 25-person sales team that all they do is talk to financial professionals about Bitcoin, whether it's up or down. And one thing we've seen since we launched in 2017 is we gain a lot of customers in the bear markets, because suddenly the big name firms stop talking about crypto because they have 1,000 different ETFs that they can sell. We have crypto ETFs. That's all we do. And so we're there to talk people through bull and bear markets alike. And then, we lean into education, right? We do things like we wrote the CFA's Guide to Crypto. We didn't get paid, right? If you go way back in time, what caused the blow up in 2014? It was Mt. Gox collapsing. What caused the blow up in 2018? It was ICOs being shut down. What contributed to the blow up in 2022? It was a cavalcade of disasters. Luna, FTX, 3 Arrows Capital, etc. Now that we have, and as we get better regulation, you would expect that to be reduced. And then at the same time, you do have institutions turning towards crypto. And unlike retail, they're battleships. They're not speedboats, right? They take years to turn. One of my favorite statistics and most painful statistics is the average Bitwise customer allocates after about 8 to 10 meetings. If you think about what that means for a pension fund that started looking at Bitcoin when the ETF launched, they haven't gotten through 8 quarterly meetings yet. That's the speed. They'll get there in 2026. So altcoin season going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. It's a great point. Like not just that it's happening here, but the reason is because the capital, like the assets grew within the ETFs to start. And so if you own a Bitcoin ETF and you have feeling that wealth effect and you want to buy something else, you're not going to go into like MetaMask. You're going to go from the Bitcoin ETF to something that you can own in your brokerage account, like you would in any other cycle. It's like the IPO cycle in the .com era almost, in a way.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think that means there's an opportunity in the altcoin market? Because it's in a way like it hasn't really been hit by the hot ball of money yet.
Overlooked. Absolutely. Yes. There are a number of really interesting projects that are overlooked. I think there's a quiet DeFi boom that's being overlooked.
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the